Hello guys, Fish767 here. So today we're going to be taking a look at a Magic the Gathering deck tech, and I just built this deck so it's not properly sleeved, as you can see. Yeah. But today we're going to be taking a look at Thantis, the Warweaver. So 6-drop in Jund, I believe. And it's a legendary creature, a spider, at that. Vigilance Reach. All creatures attack each combat if able. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, you put a +1/+1 counter on Thantis the Warweaver. So basically, everything else is attacking. You don't really have a defense besides Thantis or any other vigilance creatures you have, but neither do your opponents, so it levels the battlefield. And then Thantis gets bigger, so you can kill off the biggest threat unless it's unblockable or has a land walk ability. She's a 5/5, so she is pretty big all by herself. And so we're going to be building the entire deck around having her out, because, she's probably going to get out and then probably going to die, but that's okay, because we can still be attacking like crazy regardless. So starting off with lands, we have 11 forests, 11 swamps, 10 mountains, and then a Timber Gorge, Golgari Gogate, Rakdos Carnarium. There's been a problem here. There were 2 Golgari Gogates. So we're going to take one out and add in another mountain. I'm going to go find the mountain later. Then there's a Jungle Hollow, a Foul Orchard, Path of Ancestry, and Golgari Rough Farm. So that's 11 of each basic, and then those non-basics. So going into the deck, the first card that we're going to look at here is a Frenzied Aronix. It's from the newer set, a 4-drop with Riot and Trample. Pay 6, it gets +3/+0 until the end of turn. It's a 3/3, or it's either a 3/3 with haste or a 4/4. Your choice. I would put the +1/+1 counter on it, to be honest, because that's going to be better for what we're doing. Plus, we don't want to swing with it right off the bat. We got a 7-drop, either a 7/7 or a 6/6 with haste, and it has Trample. And then we have a Bloodlord of Vegasoth, so a 5/5, or not a 5/5, a 5-drop, 3/3 with Bloodthirst 3. So if an opponent was dealt damage this turn, this creature enters the battlefield with 3 additional +1/+1 counters on it. And it has flying, and whenever you cast a vampire creature spell, it gains Bloodthirst 3. Since everything's attacking, just go to combat, hit them for something, and then you play this, and it's a 5-drop, 6/6 flyer that gives everything else, at least vampire-wise, Bloodthirst, which we run a couple vampires, not too many. So one of those vampires is Vein Drinker. Now the reason why we run a Vein Drinker is because it's a 6-drop, 4/4 with Bloodthirst 3, hopefully. It has flying, and then it's the second ability. You pay red, tap it. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature, and that creature deals damage equal to its power to Vein Drinker. And whenever a creature dealt damage by Vein Drinker this turn dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on Vein Drinker. So basically, you kill off a couple of their tokens or whatever that's really little. And by the way, this is Commander, if you didn't know. You kill off a bunch of their tokens that are like little, and then it gets big enough to kill off their big things. And that's like what we want to do. We want to kill off stuff because we're not really going to be doing it in combat. We have a Skeletal Vampire, so it's a 6-drop flyer. When it enters, you create 2/1/1 black bats with flying, and then you can pay 5, sacrifice a bat, create 2/1/1 black bats with flying. So you sack 1 bat, you get 2. And then you can sacrifice a bat to regenerate it to keep it going, which is really nice. Soul of Innistrad, it's a 6-drop, 6/6 Death Touch. Pay 5, return up to 3 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. We're going to be using that ability a lot if it stays on the battlefield, and then pay 5, exile it from your graveyard, and then you get to return 3 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So that's really helpful. We've got Greater Gargadon, so I debated on putting this one in, but it's a 10-drop with Suspend 10 for 1, sacrifice an artifact, creature, or land, remove a time counter from it, activate this ability only if it is suspended, and it's a 9/7. So the idea is you suspend it probably on turn 1, hopefully, and then if something would ever die, you instead sacrifice it unless it's trading, and then Greater Gargadon goes down in the counter, and once it comes out, it's really big and powerful. Assembled Alphas, it's a 6-drop, 5/5. Whenever it blocks or becomes blocked by a creature, it deals 3 damage to that creature and 3 damage to that creature's controller. Just in there for some extra hit-ins. Then we got Silverclad Ferociodons, a 7-drop, 8/5 Enrage, and whenever it is dealt damage, each opponent sacrifices a permanent. So I feel like that one's pretty self-explanatory as to why that's in there. Beast Whisper, 85%, well, not 85%, but like 85% of the 50% of the non-lands in here, give or take 50, it's actually 60%. Well, approximately 60%. So approximately 85% of the 60% of cards in here are creatures. So you've got a 4-drop, 2/3 whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. Yep, you get the idea. Verdant Sun's Avatar, a 7-drop, 5/5 whenever it or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. We have it in there because we don't get a lot of life, so we're going to need to gain however much we can. Warspike Changeling. So it's a 4-drop 3/3 with Changeling, so it's every single creature type at all times. Then you can pay red and give it first strike until the end of turn. So that's nice. Trove of Temptation, 4-drop, enchantment. Each opponent must attack you or a planeswalker you control with at least one creature to combat if able. With Thantis, we're basically making sure that she gets that +1/+1 counter. And at the beginning of your end step, you create a colorless treasure artifact with tap sack. This artifact has 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So it not only makes sure that Thantis gets a +1/+1 counter, but it also mana fixes, and it makes sure that we're able to cast our bigger things earlier. Very powerful card. Croconora, the 3-drop, 1/3 reach evolve. So evolve says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if that creature has a greater power or toughness than this creature, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So a lot of our creatures are triggering it. I'm pretty sure almost every single creature will trigger it. So that's a good thing. We got a Sifter Worm, 7-drop trample. When it enters the battlefield, scry 3, then reveal the top card of your library. Gain life equal to that card's converted mana cost. We got a lot of high cost cards, and this is hopefully going to gain us anywhere from 5 to maybe even 10 life with the Greater Gargadon. Hopefully we would have gotten the Greater Gargadon earlier, though. Sangromancer, 4-drop flyer. Whenever a creature in opponent controls dies, you may gain 3 life. Whenever an opponent discards a card, you may gain 3 life. It's a 3/3. Once again, we need to gain life because everything's attacking, and probably it's going to be coming at us. This is meant for one-on-one, by the way. So it's also budget, I might add. Butcher of Malakar, a 7-drop flyer. 5/4. Whenever it or another creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature, just making sure that damage is dealt and it stays dealt. Amplifier, a 4-drop 1/1. So that's not good, but this is why it's in here. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Until your next turn, its base power becomes twice that card's power, and its base toughness becomes twice that card's toughness. Put the reveal cards at the bottom of your library in a random order. So if we hit Greater Gargadon with this card on the field, guess what? It becomes an 18/14 until the end of turn. Pretty good. I like it. So, yeah. That guy gets big quickly, or he can stay small, but who knows. Haunting of Life's Web, we got spiders here, so this is probably the only spider synergistic card in here. My tape just broke. That is what happened, and my tape was keeping the phone from doing some really weird stuff, so give me just a moment as I fix it. Although I'm not quite sure how to fix it. Okay. Because I have it on a... Oh, okay, that didn't do it. I have it on a case. And it doesn't slide over all the way, so then this happens. And I have to hold it with tape, and the tape did not want to stay. Okay. Alright. We're mostly back. So at the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token on the battlefield for each shrine you control. Since the tokens don't have haste, unless you give them haste, this is in here because it allows us to block an additional creature with also including Thantis. So that's why that's in there. We're going to need to be doing some blocking if we can. Changeling Berserker, a 4-drop 5/3 Changeling haste, champion a creature. So when you champion a creature, when it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice this card unless you exile another creature, and then when this creature leaves play, that card returns to play. We've got a Brawn. It's a 4-drop trample. As long as it's in your graveyard and you control 4s, creatures you control have trample. We're swinging in with everything, so it's nice. Archetype of Aggression, creatures you control have trample. Creatures your opponents control lose trample and can't have or gain trample. You might see a theme going here with the trample. We want to give everything trample, especially this card. So we got Berserkers of Armies. It's an 8-drop 10/8. All creatures able to block it, do so. Very important, very powerful. And then we have this card. I like this card because it can attack everybody at once. It's called War Chief Giant, a 5-drop haste with Myriad, 5/3. So what Myriad reads is, whenever this creature attacks for each opponent other than the defending player, you may put a token that's a copy of this creature onto the battlefield tapped, and attacking that player or planeswalker he or she controls, exile the tokens at the end of combat. So if there's 4 people, and and you're one of the 4, so there's 3 opponents, you swing at one of them, well then you get a War Chief Giant swinging at the other 2. That's basically what it says, and then the tokens go away. And then we got Artisan of Kozilek. So it's a 9-drop 10/9 with Annihilator 2. The Annihilator is very helpful. And then whenever you cast this spell, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And this is a cast ability. So if the commander dies, then you cast this the turn after. Commander's back, and they can't do anything about it because it's just going from the graveyard to the battlefield. So unless they can exile the commander from your graveyard on the stack, it happens no matter what. And so that is a very important reason why that's there. And then Thunderstaff, since we're getting swung at and we are swinging, this is why this is in here. So it's a 3-drop artifact as long as it is untapped. If a creature would deal damage, combat damage to prevent one of that damage, we're going to be constantly getting swung at. So, you know, prevent all that damage that you can. Pay 2, tap it. Attacking creatures get +1/+0 until the end of turn. So if we need an all-out swing, we got it. Necromantic Selection is a little bit much for what I wanted, but it's the cheapest one that I have that's like the cheapest in casting cost, not the cheapest in actual cost that I have that will board wipe right away. So it's a 7-drop, stores 3, destroy all creatures, then return a creature card put into a graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. It's a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types, and you exile Necromantic Selection. So we're going to be choosing Thantis, because Thantis cannot leave the battlefield. I'm kidding, it can, but we don't want it to. Open the Graves, a 5-drop enchantment. Whenever non-token creature you control dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. It is not tapped, so that's going to be extremely powerful for blocking. And we do not want our stuff to die, and if it does, we need to be able to get stuff back on the board to swing. Wall of Shadows is a really funny card. So it's a 3-drop. Wall, so walls can't attack in case you didn't know. Damage dealt to Wall of Shadows by creatures it blocks is reduced to 0. Wall of Shadows cannot be the target of spells or effects that can target only walls. So basically it's hexproof from cards that target walls, and it, you know, it can't really be killed by combat damage. So this is a fun little card here. It's basically Fog Bank on a black card. That was the idea of putting it in here. There's a red one if you wanted to get the red one. Instead, it's like a snowman. And I like the red one's art better, but I don't own the red one, I own the black one, so we put the black one in. The red one is also less, it only has to have 1 red as opposed to 2 black, which makes it a little bit better. So Nemesis Immortals is a 6-drop 5/5 snake. It costs 1 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard, and then Monstrosity for 9, or it has Monstrosity 5 for 9, it costs 1 less to activate for each creature card in your graveyard. So, very powerful in the late game. Overseer of the Damned, a 7-drop 5/5 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you may destroy target creature, and whenever a non-token creature in opponent controls dies, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie. So unfortunately, it is tapped, but every time that Thantis kills something, we get a 2/2 zombie, as long as it's not a token. So that's really powerful. Grafted Exoskeleton. So this card can one-shot them if you get it on a creature with trample and big enough power. So it's a 4-drop. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has Infect. Whenever it becomes unattached for a permanent, sacrifice that permanent, equip cost to 2. Bam. That's how we're going to win most games if we can't beat them straight in the face. Warstorm Surge is one of our only ways to mass removal things. A 6-drop enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player. So we got a bunch of big things. We're going to kill off a bunch of our opponent's things with that, or just hit them in the face if we have to. Scoop Mob. It's a 1-drop at the beginning of your upkeep. If you control 5 or more lands, put 4 +1/+1 counters on a Scoop Mob. So after turn 5, or if you ramp into a more lands earlier, Scoop Mob gets big fast. And big things are good. Samurai Convergence, an 8-drop. Creatures with flying can't attack you or planeswalkers you control, which is really good because our only reach creature in here is Thantis. And at the beginning of your end step, create a 5/5 green worm. Good for attacking. Good for blocking as well. Dark Imposter, a 3-drop 2/2, pay 6, exile target creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Dark Imposter, so we have removal for 6 mana, just straight up. And it has all activated abilities if all creature cards exiled with it. So if you exile a card that says pay 3, destroy a creature, guess what? You can pay 3 and destroy a creature instead of having to pay 6. I don't know that there's a card that does that, though. Then there's Dance of the Dead. So it's a 2-drop enchant dead creature, so you basically enchant a card in your graveyard, and then what happens is it comes to play tapped with +1/+1 permanently from the graveyard, and then it has Summoning Sickness, doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. At the end of his or her upkeep, the controller may pay 2 to untap it, and then if it is removed, bury the creature in its owner's graveyard. So basically kill the creature if this is removed. It's complicated because that card's old. It's also probably the most expensive card in here. Genesis Hydra. 2 and X, when you cast Genesis Hydra, reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put an online permanent card with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield, then shuffle the rest into your library. Enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. So, fun in the late game. Bow of Nihilea, a 3-drop attacking creatures control of Death Touch, and if they have Trample and Death Touch, 1 damage to everything, the rest goes through. Pay 2, tap it, choose one, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, or it deals 2 damage to target creature with flying, or you gain 3 life, or put up to 4 target cards from your graveyard on the bottom of your library in any order, which is powerful. It's also an enchantment artifact, so they can remove it multiple ways. Journey of Discovery, 3-drop, choose one. Search your library for 2 basic land cards, put them in your hand, or play 2 additional lands this turn. It's got Entwine for 3, so you can choose both if you pay an additional 3. Consuming Vapors, 4-drop, target player sacrifices a creature. You gain life equal to that creature's toughness with Rebound, so after your next upkeep, cast again. Ooze Flux, a 4-drop enchantment, pay 2, remove 1 or more +1/+1 counters from among creatures you control. Put an X green Ooze creature token on the battlefield, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters removed this way. Because we've got Thantis here, she gets +1/+1 counters, so if we need an extra blocker because we're about to die, we just pay 2, bam. Death's Presence, it synergizes with Ooze Flux, coincidentally. A 6-drop enchantment, whenever a creature you control dies, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the power of the creature that died. So if we block with an Ooze from Ooze Flux, and the Ooze dies, Death's Presence just puts the counters back on Thantis. So it's like, with Thantis, we can generate as many blockers as we need, as long as we have 2 mana for each one that we need, and then if they die, it goes back on Thantis, so it's not a problem. And then also our Hydras let us do that too. Hero's Bane, a 5-drop, enters with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. Pay 4, put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is its power. So, fun. Curse of Predation, a 3-drop enchant player. Whenever a creature attacks an enchanted player, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Synergizes really well. Bladeheart Cavalry, a 7-drop. When it enters the battlefield, supports 6. So you put +1/+1 counter on each of up to 6 other target creatures. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, you gain 2 life. Powerful. And with our other +1/+1 counter synergy, very helpful. From Beyond, a Devoid, at the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 card on a Slipdrazi Sign creature token on the battlefield. It has sacrificed this creature, add 1 to your mana pool, pay 2 sacrifice from Beyond, and then you can search your library for an Eldrazi card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle. We have a couple that we could get. Aid from the Cowl, a 5-drop enchantment, revolt at the beginning of your end step. If a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a permanent card, you may put it on the battlefield, otherwise you may put it on the bottom. So the good thing about this card is it doesn't have to go on the bottom, and it also doesn't have to be put on the battlefield if you don't want it. But most of our cards are permanent, so pretty much anything goes. Final Parting, 5-drop, you search for 2 cards, put 1 in the graveyard, 1 to your hand. Status Statue. Status gives a creature +1/+1 Death Touch. Statue destroys artifact creatures or enchantments. Putrefy, it destroys an artifact or creature, can't be regenerated for 3. Rescast Right for 5, searches for a card, and Diabolic Tutor does the same thing for 4. Never destroy target creature or planeswalker. Return, exile a card from a graveyard, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Cultivate, you search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put 1 on the battlefield, tap the other into your hand. Harrow, as additional cost to cast it, sacrifice land, search your library for 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield, then shuffle. Darksteel Ingot, indestructible, tap, add 1 mana of any color. Vraska Golgari Queen, so +2 sacrifice permanent. If you do gain a life, draw a card. You don't have to, though. -3, destroy target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less. Or -9, you get an emblem with, if a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. And then Deadbridge Chant, a 6-drop enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you mill 10. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you choose a card at random in your graveyard. If it's a creature card, put it on the battlefield, otherwise put it in your hand. Pretty self-explanatory for why that's there. And that's the deck with Thantis. So, there's no combos, really. It just does stuff. And it's very powerful for what it does. At least in theory, I haven't got to test it yet, but I'm about to as soon as I sleeve it. So, I love Thantis. I just got her yesterday, actually. And, I love her abilities, and I was like, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, Commander deck. This card's awesome. So, there is 1 or 2 upgrades I would suggest. There is a 6-drop, 2, so it takes 2 colorless, 2 green. Well, it doesn't take 2 colors. It's 2 of any mana, 2 green, 2 red, and it's a 6/6 reach spider. I think it has reach. It might not have reach. There's a couple spiders that don't. And then it says whenever an opponent casts a spell, you put X11 creatures on, or X11 spiders on the battlefield that don't have reach, if I'm correct, where X is the cost of that spell, the converted mana cost of that spell. If they cast Bangfire for 15, you get 15 1/1s. It's a good card. It's only 6 mana to play too. Its devotion is crazy. And it's not legendary, otherwise it would be the commander of this deck, straight up. But it should go in here. By all means, put that in here. Take out the wall for... I honestly think that probably would be the best thing to take out. That card is extremely powerful, should definitely go in here. And if you put that in here, then there's another spider. I can't remember that one's name either. But it says pay 7... Each opponent loses X life, for X is the number of spiders you control, and if I'm correct, it says you gain that much life. It might not, though. And then it has Delirium. If it enters the battlefield, you make 3/1/2 spiders with Death Touch. So that's the idea behind it. It's a Golgari spider. It should go in here. Those 2 spiders go in here, makes the deck really powerful, really smooth playing, and it puts in a combo that can win. Otherwise, this is good enough. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good day.